Welcome to Instablogs Global Report. This is Sukhmani with fresh updates and citizen voices from all over the world. Top stories for the day are: United States and Iraq reach close to an agreement on security accord. Pakistan grappling with internal crisis following the pullout by Nawaz Sharif's PMLN. Hearing on a landmark case to define Indian land rights underway in Brazil. And Nepal assesses the socio-economic benefits accruing from the construction of dams and barrages along River Kosi by India. The United States and Iraq are close to reaching an agreement over a security accord under which the US would pull out its combat troops from Iraq. The agreement comes amidst confidence expressed by country's Premier Nouri al Maliki in country's political and military strength. CJ Prince Campbell from US has more on the prospective impact of the accord on Iraq.
This is Prince Campbell, citizen journalist from the United States. The United States and Iraq are close to agreeing on a security accord under which the U.S. would pull its combat troops out of Iraqi cities, towns, and villages. If the accord gets implemented, the U.S. will cease to be the predominant military power in Iraq since the U.S.-led coalition forces to overthrow Saddam in 2003. This is good news in an election year, when the majority of Americans seek the materialization of withdrawal and look up to both Republican and Democratic candidates to deliver the same. Besides, this is an appropriate time for the U.S. to leave Iraq since it looks as if Shia Sunni government under the premiership of Nouri al Maliki is here to stay, given the confidence shown in the country's political and military strength by him. The occupation has always been opposed by the majority of Iraqis outside of Kurdistan. Agreement on this security accord should be a welcome development for Iraqis in particular and in America in general.
Pakistan is struggling hard to grapple with political crisis following the pullout by Nawaz Sharif from the ruling coalition. The country has slipped into deeper economic and internal crisis ever since the resignation by President Pervez Musharraf. CJ Humayun Tiaz reports on political and economic chaos within Pakistan.
This is Humayun Tiaz reporting for Instablogs, a citizen journalist in Pakistan. After General retired Pervez Musharraf stepped down as president, Pakistan is heading towards multiple crises with no visible game plans in sight. PMLN leader Nawaz Sharif has pulled out of the coalition government, blaming the PPP for not restoring the deposed judges. Terrorist attacks, including multiple suicide blasts, have taken place, defying the writ of the government. The electricity crisis in the country has worsened and the stock market plummets to its worst ever low. The country's politicians have once again failed to take advantage of the situation after Musharraf stepped down and are now heading defenseless into a sea of crises.
Controversy rages in Brazil after a landmark hearing in a case pertaining to the Indian land rights gets underway in the Brazilian Supreme Court. CJ Celso reports from Brazil for Instablogs.
This is Celso, citizen journalist from Brazil. A fresh controversy has erupted after the Brazilian Supreme Court began hearing a landmark case to define Indians' rights to their land. The court will decide whether native Indians have to share a reserve of 7,000 square kilometers with non-indigenous rice farmers. Amazon Indians have been pitted against a handful of large-scale rice farmers who have violently fought efforts to remove them. Those who favor the breaking up of the reserve should know that the said reservation resulted from a decades-long effort to right wrongs that began 5 centuries ago during colonization by the Portuguese. It is wrong to say that the entire reservation in Indian hands is a threat to national security and strangles economic growth in the sparsely populated state. On the contrary, the court, by ruling against the reservation, should set a precedent that would eventually destroy policies that grant Indians land and autonomy to maintain their traditional cultures.
Following the flooding along River Kosi, Nepal has once again begun to assess the social economic benefits accruing from the Indian-built dams and barrages in the country. CJ Mukunda reports from Nepal for Instablogs.
This is Mukunda, citizen journalist reporting from Nepal for Instablogs.com. With the advent of the monsoon season, hard times get worse for Nepali villages as they face being submerged by downstream Indian barrages. India often resorts to nefarious tactics to construct dams and barrages on its border with Nepal to minimize havoc caused by Nepali rivers on Indian towns and villages downstream. India wants to construct a high dam along River Kosi in lieu of the deteriorating condition of the existing barrage, which it claims could yield at any time. Many believe that India's uncontrollable eagerness to control the Himalayan rivers on the Nepalese side has brought few benefits for Nepal. While India continues to blame Nepalese neglect for the annual dialogue, we need to be objective and go back to an assessment of the benefits and losses that the Kosi barrage and other India-built dams have meant for Nepal up to the present day. This is not to say, however, the Kosi dam should not be constructed, but an objective consideration of its socio-economic impact is required.
If you want your voice to be heard by millions, let Instablogs be your choice. You can contact us at cj@instablogs.com. That's all for today's show. We'll be back with fresh updates and more citizen voices. Till then, it's goodbye from the entire team of Global Report.